Friends, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me, and we're starting. Looking back at it now, I can clearly see that all the main signs were there. I didn't see them, but they were there. It wasn't until miracles started happening that I realized something had happened. The first event happened right after our third anniversary. I completely missed it at the time, but later, when I recalled it, it was crystal clear in hindsight. It turned around and hit me hard on the head. What was the reason for all this? You may ask, what is the only event that led me to find out about this? My wife's new hairstyle, to be precise. When she cut her hair like that and styled it like that, it surprised me. Megan had never cut her hair much, and until that day it had always been quite long. I liked her long hair, and many times I stroked it, hoping to let her know that I really loved her hair the way it was. Over the next few weeks, I realized that her hairstyle change had taught me a lot about triplets. Why? Megan is one of the identical triplets. Note, not just triplets, but identical triplets. So identical that in the early years their parents marked the soles of their feet with the letters A, B, and C with a felt tip pin. Why not the letters of their names? Because all their names started with the same letter. There was no other way to tell them apart. After a while, I think they just gave up and hoped for the best. Let's go back to the hairstyle. Megan returned home in a new look that Friday night after Thanksgiving, spending the whole day shopping with her sisters on the biggest shopping day of the year. The first thing I noticed was her hair. She cut and styled her hair, it was obvious, but what really struck me was how the styling made her so beautiful. So beautiful that at first I was stunned speechless. My first thought was, oh my God, is this my Megan? Damn it. The silence obviously caused her some discomfort. Finally, just as she was about to say something, I found my voice. Who are you and what have you done to my wife? I thought it would give her pleasure, as if to let her know that the hairstyle had made an impression on me and all that. To my surprise, what I got was at first a scared look, then it was replaced by a guilty look. For a second, I thought she was going to turn around and run away from me. I could see her making an effort to control her emotions, and I tried not to let on that I noticed her fears. Please tell me you like it, please. I know I never told you that I was planning to get a haircut and all that, but Melissa and Margot talked me into it. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but they will grow back soon. Her words came out so fast that they almost bumped into each other. I was surprised that she cut her hair, knowing how much I liked her hair the way it was, but at the same time, I never actually said that she couldn't or shouldn't cut it if she wanted to. After all, she didn't belong to me. We were just a married couple, and if she got tired of her long hair or something like that, I figured she could make these changes on her own. I always thought she knew that, so her reaction was unexpected for me. Oh, honey, you're beautiful. Oh my God. You look so gorgeous that I can hardly believe I'm married to you. I'm loving it. So you don't mind it? I mean, you're not mad at me, are you? God, no. Maybe surprised, but definitely not angry. You look amazing. I got a smile, but it was a weak, nervous smile, unlike her usual one. I was too engrossed in contemplating my wife to really notice it at the time, but looking back, I remember it clearly. I was really worried about her initial reaction and guilty look, but I put it down to the sudden change and her fears that I wouldn't like it. That night we had a mind-blowing love affair. It started in the bedroom and ended in our living room. The whole night was like a new woman in my life. It seemed that Megan was also more open to everything. Doing it outside on deck was the first time. In fact, doing it where someone could see us was the first time. Then the next couple of days were a little awkward at times. She acted like a stranger from time to time, and I wondered where that came from. I applied it to the hairstyles and realized that it must have meant more to her than I thought. By the next Monday, everything was back to normal, and we got along as usual. I kept praising her hairstyle all that week, and Megan finally admitted that I hadn't lied to her about it, and admitted that I really liked her new look. The following weekend, her sisters came for a barbecue. I learned more about the nature of identical triplets. Margot and Melissa appeared with exactly the same hairstyle as Megan. I saw them both on Monday afternoon when we invited them to a barbecue, and their hair was exactly the same as Megan's before her transformation. Now each of them looked exactly the same again. If it wasn't for the different clothes they were wearing, I would never have been able to tell them apart again. Over time, I realized that every woman, of course, has her own personality, don't get me wrong. It was just so hard to tell them apart, and now having Megan with different hair was the only advantage I wanted. Now I've come back to the realization that they can still tease me. There were several ways to distinguish them from each other, but most of them lay in the way they acted. For example, Melissa and Megan were more diligent, always calm, and more likely to stick to a certain line, while Margot was wild. Margot most likely got into trouble for something much more often than Megan or Melissa. Margot usually bought the racy swimsuits first, and then persuaded the other two to put them on. She was more of an exhibitionist than her sisters. Melissa was smarter than everyone else and went to college further than Margot or Megan. She received a master's degree in business administration, while Megan and Margot received only a bachelor's degree. Melissa was married 2 years before Megan and I met. Margot was still single, and she liked it. It was pretty common knowledge that Margot wasn't looking for any permanent relationship and didn't want to be tied up. For her, marriage was not something she ever wanted to do. Over the years, Megan, Melissa, and Margot have been close and have taken great care of each other. Their parents had problems with one or the other from time to time, which is normal for children and parents, but in this case, the sisters stood up for each other, wearing the same clothes and not allowing to determine who is who. This usually resulted in all of them being punished. I've heard that shopping has always been difficult for them, as they wore the same size and for the most part had very similar tastes in clothes. Most stores had problems with having 3 items of the same size. It was quiet on weekends when Melissa was having a barbecue. Her husband Rick did not come, and I felt that there were some problems with the girls about this. Something was going on there, but none of them wanted to talk about it in front of me. They all seemed worried. I could say that Melissa and Rick had problems, and even though we were related, Rick and I never really talked. He was quite stiff with me at times, and although I tried my best, he never warmed to me. Consequently, we didn't communicate much at all. I didn't mind it much, but what bothered me sometimes was his attitude, as if he didn't like me at all. I never let it get to me too much, but I was still puzzled as to why he was acting this way with me. Despite all this, Melissa was one of those who did not want the personal things in her life to be in plain sight. Damn it, all 3 of them were like that to some extent. While we were eating, Megan went into the house to get ketchup, and Melissa went with her. I figured they had a heart-to-heart conversation, so I just pretended to believe that's what they were doing. We were looking for ketchup. They were gone for about half an hour. Margot flirted with me relentlessly during this time, even trying to touch me in quite intimate places such as my crotch. I played around a bit, but I didn't let her succeed in her attempts to grope me. It was obvious that she was trying to distract my attention from Megan and Melissa. This type of flirtation on Margot's part was also nothing new. She always put on plays for me while I was dating her sister. Of course, there was nothing I could do, because I was sure that if I did, Megan would immediately find out. It's not that I wanted this from the very beginning. However, when I was around her, there was always some kind of undercurrent that made me keep a close eye on myself, not only in the way I acted, but also in what I said. After a while, Melissa came out, sat down at the other end of the picnic table for me, and looked at me strangely. Margot was still flirting with me, and I thought maybe Melissa was worried about me playing too much or something with her sister, so I quickly cooled down. This look persisted until the end of lunch. When her sisters left that night, Megan was worried. I could tell by the look in her eyes that there was something serious going on between Rick and Melissa. Knowing that sooner or later everything would come out, I just let Megan know that I was there for her and her sisters, no matter what. Megan's bed was pretty cool that night. I made love for the first time that week, and it didn't take long to get her interested in anything. After that, she snuggled up to me and hugged me almost possessively all night long. That's when I realized that everything that was going on with Melissa was really very serious when Megan was acting like that. Over the next week, the situation calmed down, and by the following Saturday, Megan and I were in great shape. Since Christmas shopping was still high on the list of priorities, I knew Megan would want to go shopping with her sisters, and I wasn't at all surprised when Margot showed up and grabbed her to get out. I spent the day doing some housework, as it was sunny and almost warm. The unusually warm weather we had was a bonus, as I was able to repair the front deck and tidy up the yard a bit. I built everything with my own hands and was a little proud of it. So every time some little thing went out of order or started to look not quite perfect, I worried about it until it was fixed. Later in the afternoon, I went shopping alone. At the local mall, I saw Margot's car as I walked in and hoped I wouldn't bump into them while shopping. I didn't want Megan, Melissa, or Margot to know what I was giving them for Christmas. Her sisters would scream in a second if they knew that someone would get something better than the others. Needless to say, surprises were difficult when they were around. I saw them at the mall by the food court, standing together. Melissa was there, so obviously at some point they all got together, and now they were in the middle of a shopping trip. I quickly turned around and left, heading to another mall a little further away. Now that I knew where they were, I knew where to go and buy them presents. Feeling a little smug, I returned home with the wrapped presents and found them having a cup of coffee in the kitchen. Oh, someone was busy shopping without us. What have you brought us, darling? Megan was smiling and tried to grab the presents. It's none of your business, honey. You'll find out all about it on Christmas morning. Oh, come on, Matt. Reveal the secret. You can tell me what you have, Margot, Melissa, can't you? No. I know all about you girls. The three of you have this telepathic thing, and I know that if I tell you, Megan, they'll read your mind and understand what I've prepared for them too. No, I won't tell you. Telepathic? Do you mean telepathy? Yes, you girls have telepathy. If I telegraph you, you telegraph them, and then I'll be a pathetic gift giver again. That's not going to happen this year. Not if there's anything I can do about it. Oh my God, Matt. You're not interesting. Melissa smiled for the first time since we had a barbecue. I was hoping that everything that was going on between her and Rick had settled down. Judging by her smile, it was true. However, I noticed that Megan seemed more calm. After discussing the gifts, she pretty much kept to herself. Margot was flirtatious as usual, and while I was starting to wonder about Megan's mood, she attacked me. Hi, Matt. I like what you've done to the front deck. It really looks good. Thank you. In fact, it only took a few moments. Nothing that a few tools couldn't fix. Speaking of tools, could you come by my place tomorrow? I have some things that need fixing. I heard that you have all the necessary equipment to put me in order. I could clearly see what kind of things she wanted to put in order, and blushing a little, I looked at Megan. She wasn't smiling. I knew that sometimes Margot can go a little too far, and I decided that this was one of those times. Well, Margot, you're going to have to find some other guy with the right equipment to fix you. Your sister kind of tied me up for life. Margot smiled, and a mischievous twinkle appeared in her eyes. Hey, Megan, could you borrow Matt for a while? I only need him for, say, 4 hours tomorrow. This should help me get through the rest of the week. Megan looked at her sister and smiled. I felt relieved. Well, I felt relieved for a moment, and then everything went downhill. Of course, Margot. That would be great. You could use him for those 4 hours, and then he could go to Melissa and help her for 4 hours, too, and then he would get really tired and not bother me later in the evening. I was stunned. Although she was smiling and joking, I caught a hidden seriousness that she had never shown before. I've never heard her almost complain that I'm bothering her for love. I always thought she was more than willing to join me. I was surprised. I didn't say anything when all the sisters jumped up and started teasing each other and me, but the words in that single line bothered me more than I wanted to. Later that evening, I broached the subject with Megan as we went to bed. So you think I'm bothering you too much for love, Megan? No. What gave you that idea, Matt? Your comment earlier this evening is what gave me the idea. Do you remember when you joked with Melissa and Margot about borrowing me and my equipment? I was just teasing you, Matt. Don't be so sensitive. Well, you've never done this before. I always thought you liked our love and how often we did it. If I push you too hard, you can always tell me that you're not interested. The last thing I want is for you to think you have to make love to me. That's not true, Matt. You know that. I like making love to you. In fact, I wish we'd made love more often than we do now. Of course, we have to work to make a living, so it sometimes rains at this parade. But to be honest, I was just teasing. I like making love to you every time we do it. I always do that. Well, sometimes people don't always say what they mean and try to express it by teasing or in other ways. It sounded like one of those things to me. As if maybe you're tired of making love so often. Matthew, please. I was just teasing. I think our life is great. What's bothering you at all? There was a note of anger in her voice, but concern on her face. I think maybe something is going on with Melissa and Rick. You girls don't tell me what it is, and I know it's serious. You know I don't like secrets like that. I guess I'm afraid that all this will spread to our marriage too. Oh, honey, it's just girly talk. Really. Melissa and Rick are having some problems right now. It happens. Yes, it's serious, but we think they'll figure it out soon. Yes? Yes. Melissa is just acting. Good. Melissa. She's never been so open with her feelings and stuff. If it were Margot or me, you'd know all about it, but Melissa is just shy right now. She's afraid that you'll hear our conversation and feel that you need to take sides, and she doesn't want you and Rick to fight over it. In fact, there is nothing special about it. She moved closer and hugged me tightly. I accepted what she told me as the truth because I had no other choice. And yet, no matter how serious the circumstances seemed, I wondered what was really going on with them. I trusted Megan, so I knew that whatever it was, it would turn out for the best in the end. I was worried about her comment that Melissa was afraid Rick and I would have a fight. We had never been so close, so I wasn't sure what kind of falling out we could have under such circumstances. This conversation was largely forgotten after about a week or so. We went back and forth shopping for Christmas and were busy with ordinary life. Then came the cut. It was a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but what she was shouting at me about really started to wake me up to what was happening. Megan was helping me in the kitchen on Thursday night and cut her finger when she was cutting potatoes for dinner. We cleaned the wound and found that it was a small cut, and I sealed it with a plaster. It was one of those cuts that will be forgotten after a day or so, but which in the meantime are painful. The next morning after she got out of the shower, I looked at her, seeing a thin line between her first and second knuckle. The scab showed the beginning of the healing process. Just in case, she put on another Band-Aid and got to work. I've been busy all day, and it's been a hell of a Friday for me. If it was the 13th, I would have thought it was a typical bad day. It was Friday, the 16th. The 16th day in December. It's not that far from Christmas. The sisters were visiting, we played a board game and just had a nice family evening. We were all having fun and laughing at things in general. I noticed that all three sisters had patches on the same fingers in the same place. I made a comment about the triplets and how strange it must be for them. I got stares and crazy looks not only from Megan, but also from her sisters. I knew that if I kept having this conversation, I would have problems with Megan, so I let him die a rather sudden death. It seemed that I was the only one who was interested in the fact that all three of them cut the same finger in the same place with a difference of one day. At one time or another, the two sisters would leave and talk for a few minutes. I decided that it was all about Melissa and Rick and their problems, so I didn't pay much attention to it. Later, when we were getting ready for bed, Megan decided to take a quick shower. When she came out, I noticed that the Band-Aid was gone. When I looked at her hand, I didn't see a cut. No scab, no red spot, nothing. Megan caught me looking at her hand and turned away as if she had forgotten something. She got it right away, bandage. She came back with one of them on her finger, and nothing was said. Thursday was also the day I decided I was starting to go crazy. For us, it started around bedtime. I was so stunned that I just couldn't collect my thoughts. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone or something. The sisters have finished working on holiday gifts for their parents and mine. Kitchen utensils for cooking and baking, which they packed. We joked and laughed, teasing each other, and the evening was good. Over the next week, I figured out how to start figuring out what was going on. I used the parental method, and in the end it turned out to be quite simple. The only way parents could tell them apart when they were babies was the only way I could too, and it worked. Too good. Every time we made love, at some point I put Megan in a doggy pose and, doing so, marked her with a marker. Do you know? Those little permanent markers that you buy at the grocery store? I bought their package, which had 5 colors in it. I started with black. It was difficult to hide the marker in advance, but then I came across a small ledge on the corner post of our bed, which securely held the box and at the same time was out of sight. Every time, as I said, I marked Megan on her back between her shoulder blades, where her bra strap covered her. I also put a little mark between her buns, on her tight little ass. I was careful to set these points, and most of all I was worried about Megan not seeing and feeling how I was doing it, or she smelled the marker when I opened it. I found that doing something like this during love turned out to be more difficult than I thought. It took several attempts before I plucked up the courage and really put that first point. It was not easy to do this quickly and still leave a sufficient trace. A working fan helped, as it immediately drove the odorous air away from us. I've been updating my grades all week. I noted that the shower did not wash them off, so I knew that the marks would remain for a few days or more after application. On Saturday evening, the marks disappeared. They disappeared, and Megan was acting weird again. All the time we were married, these oddities happened, and I attributed it to Megan's volatile nature or just to life. On Saturday night, there were no marks on her back or between her buttocks. Nothing. I took out a green marker and made a small dot between her shoulder blades and in the same place on her ass. Again, over the next week the marks remained, and I updated them. Then on Friday evening, the tags disappeared again. Now I knew that the one who had ever been in bed with me was not the one I had been in bed with last night or even a week earlier, and the strangeness started again. Red became the color choice that night and remained so in the following days. Then, the following Tuesday, the woman lying in bed with me had two small faint black dots. One is between her shoulder blades, and the other is in the crack of her ass, right where I put them 2 weeks ago. Christmas has come and gone. Rick moved out from Melissa, and they were in the process of divorcing. No one talked to me, especially Rick. Megan didn't say anything. She just changed the subject whenever I started talking about it. I know I should have said something, but I was waiting. I was hoping that what I found would happen only once. It wasn't like that. The marks changed about every week. Black, green, and then red. Everything is like clockwork. There were a few weeks that would have been shorter, for example, by only 4 days, but then there would have been some that would have been longer, by about 8 or 9 days. They were never equidistant from each other, but there was a weekly difference in the scheme of things. I was mistaken for a sucker, harshly saddled and, so to speak, chased. I wonder how long they've been doing this. Of course, I was surprised. Why? I also wondered why sisters play a similar game with their husbands. I knew making love to each of them was something I'd never seriously thought about, but obviously that's what I was doing. I didn't know how long it took, but nevertheless, I got all 3 sisters. A man's dream has come true, right? Well, I wasn't sure what I wanted, but I knew I got married thinking I loved Megan and that she loved me. Obviously, something else was going on at some point. I was torn apart. On the one hand, I wanted to confront Megan, but I didn't have a chance to find out which one of them was Megan. On the other hand, I didn't want to ruin my marriage with Megan, even if it led to a transition to the Twilight Zone. I let it go on until the new year, and then I decided I'd had enough. One night, it was Thursday, Megan and I were getting ready for bed. When she came in, I was lying on the bed in my pajamas. It was the first time for me. "What's wrong, Matt? Why aren't you naked?" "I'm just wondering, who are you tonight?" She stopped dead in her tracks, and she looked like a deer in the headlights. What?" I said. "I'm just wondering, who are you tonight? Melissa? Margot? Maybe my legal wife, Megan? I'd really like to know who I'm going to use." "You're not going to get anything if you keep doing this, mister. I'm not sure where you got this stupid idea that I share you with my sisters, but I'm your wife, Megan. What the hell is going on with you anyway, Matt?" She decided to say it in an angry voice. I guess an angry response has worked in the past, but not now. Not in this situation, anyway. "Turn around." "What?" She was confused. First I accused them of switching places, and then suddenly I asked her to turn around. "Why should I turn around?" "I need to see something on your back." Megan, or whoever she was, turned around. I saw small black marks. Black. Black? Yes, black. You see, last Friday night you had red marks, and then on Saturday they turned black. I bet they'll turn green tomorrow or Saturday. Confusion was written all over her face. There was fear in her eyes. Then came the realization. "You've been talking to Rick, haven't you?" "No, absolutely. He doesn't want to talk to me, and I haven't even seen him. I did this little experiment on my own. However, I really don't like the results I got. What this means could mean our end. If we ever really existed, Megan, or Melissa, or Margot, or whoever you are." "How did you know?" "At first it was hairstyles. It was a sudden change in you. One of you, anyway. You used yours." "I'm sorry. I'm forgetting myself, Megan." I used my credit card to get a haircut on the Friday after Thanksgiving. The arraignment date was 5 days after her haircut. I called them about it, and they told me that Megan had cut her hair the day before, on Tuesday. I saw Megan with a new haircut last Friday. Then further investigation showed me that Margot got her hair cut on Tuesday. Melissa had her hair done on Thursday. I watched her face, mostly her eyes. I could see the acceptance of my theory there, and that told me a lot. It also made me braver as I walked on. You all got hairstyles from the same hairdresser. So I went and talked to her. She was helpful when she found out that our credit card could have been compromised, and even looked at the records about haircuts. Megan allegedly used her credit card on Thursday. I'm still not sure who I slept with that week, but now I know it couldn't have been my wife. That is, my legal wife. It doesn't mean anything. I paid for Melissa's haircut and let her use my card. So what? She was raging, trying to get away from my accusation. She didn't realize that she had misunderstood who had the haircut using her card. That Tuesday, it wasn't Melissa, but either Megan or Margot. Well, then there was a finger. A finger? Yes. Megan, or whoever it was, cut her finger. I washed it and put a Band-Aid on it. And then you all showed up with Band-Aids. Except that the one who went to bed with me that weekend didn't have a cut under the Band-Aid. It hit me, but what followed later hit me even more and pretty much built it all up in my mind. The incision has changed the angle of inclination, and that, my dear, is impossible. That's it. And what about the colored markings? After the cut disappeared and then reappeared, I became quite suspicious, as you can imagine. I started marking the one I was with during the week with a colored marker. First it was black, then green, and finally red. You're black. The red one was here last week, and I suspect the green one will be, or rather should have been, next week. Matthew, you know that I love you. I can't really explain it all alone. I need us all to sit down and talk. Please? I wish I knew that. I mean, you love me. I don't even know who the hell you are. Which one are you? I'm Megan. Oh, it calms me down. How will you ever be able to prove that to me? There was a challenge in her gaze, and at the same time some confusion. I can prove it. I married you more than 3 years ago. I was the one. Oh shit. I really can't prove anything at all. Now, all I could see on her face was worry. I also saw her realizing that she really couldn't prove to me who she was at the moment. Yes, this is a fact. You see, Melissa was married to Rick all these years. Margot was single, and she had different boyfriends almost weekly. All this means that Melissa and Megan were married. But Margot was wild, and she often had different men. Tell me, was Margot ever going to get married? Of course not. You two married cheaters made love to all the men you could get under the guise of Margot. And that's not counting the 2 official husbands for the 3 of you. That's what it's all about, isn't it? The 3 of you have arranged it so that each of you has the best of all worlds. This is not how we wanted it to be. Margot didn't make love to all these men all the time, as you think. You have to understand. I just have to understand that the woman I married a little over 3 years ago is not the woman I thought she was. I don't know her. I can't tell her apart from her sisters, so no matter what they say, I'll have to put up with it. 3 women who lied, debauched, cheated, and stole from me. It's not like that, Matt. We didn't steal. You've never been denied anything. Yes, of course. I was denied the love of the only woman I love. I lived a lie committed by the triplet sisters. Since when do Rick and I switch weekly? How long? Have you fools been doing this since high school? How can you live with yourself? Lies, fraud, all that. It's not like that, Matt. We love you. We all love you. You are our lover, our friend, our husband. Rick was letting us do this until you showed up. Since then, things have become more complicated. I think he didn't like meeting you face to face, knowing that you didn't know what was going on and treating the one of us who was Megan that week with all your wonderful love. He knew. Did Rick know? Did he know all this time? Listen, I need to bring my sisters here. We all have to figure this out. Most likely, this is no longer possible. I just stopped. Suddenly, I wasn't even sure which sister I was talking to at all. I just didn't know. Perhaps I should have named them Borg after the characters in the Star Trek series who possessed a collective mind and were so destructive. Honey, I'm Megan. I'm really Megan. It's going to be hard for you to understand, Matt. I'm afraid that I may have lost you now. Oh my God. It wasn't supposed to turn out that way at all. Damn that Rick who gets jealous and leaves. Heck, heck, heck. I think I deserve some respect, Megan. I figured it out without Rick's help. It took me a while to realize all this and, of course, even suspect something was wrong. But Rick had nothing to do with it. Really? Yes. I didn't know anything about Rick, or that he knew about it. I was just surprised by the haircuts, and then the episode with the cut finger. The markers have just confirmed my worst fears. Later, when all three sisters were sitting across from me in the kitchen, I saw that they were indeed identical. Of course, I had noticed this before, but now, knowing that I had made love to all three of them and couldn't tell them apart, I really got into a mess. I started our conversation because they were unusually quiet. So, I think I should start all over again. How long have you been doing this and why? They all started talking, but then the one in the middle put her hands on the hands of the others, stopping them. After taking a quick glance at each sister, she replied, Matt, we know this is a big surprise for you. We never wanted to hurt anyone, especially you. Honestly, as for how long have we been doing this? All our lives. Your whole life? Yes. It started when we were kids. We would do everything together. Playing, getting into trouble, sleeping, all that. At the same time, I noticed that they were all looking at me. I suddenly felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end as some kind of feeling washed over me. I suddenly felt uncomfortable in my own house. You are triplets, of course. You all developed at about the same time. It goes beyond that, Matt. At a young age, when we first dealt with boys, we discovered that if we kept each of us separate, we could sort things out between us. I was confused by this. What? Of course, you kept each other apart. Each of you is a human being. Triplets, but still each of you has your own personality. Yes, it's true. But that's not what I meant, Matt. You see, Margot has always been a wild child. Megan is a normal good child, and Melissa is diligent and simple. Yes? I was baffled that she had stated the obvious. That's how it should be, isn't it? Sort of. You see, we're all Margot. We're all Megan, and we're all Melissa. Stunned, I was sure I hadn't caught her intention. You mean you're triplets? And as such, no. I mean, we've all been Margot, Megan, or Melissa at different times, all our lives. I'm not. My confusion must have been quite obvious to them, because all three of them looked at each other. The one in the center began the story. Megan would become Margot, I would become Melissa, and Melissa would become Megan. We would have swapped for a day or a week. This last sentence was accompanied by the gaze of all three of them directed at me. A week? You mean? We've been changing all this time. Why should we stop doing it now? Yes. We've all gone to bed with you 1 week at a time, Matt. That's where the problems with Rick came in. He found out that we love you. He felt cheated. Before that, he knew about our exchange and treated it calmly. Then you showed up, and although he didn't really want to share, he knew he couldn't say a single word about what we were doing without opening a huge can of worms. He was grinning at your ignorance. Did he know before? Before Megan and I were dating? We've all met you, Matt. We were constantly changing. It became a natural thing for us to do. I don't understand. Then why was Rick so upset? Because he knew we were all in love with you, Matt. I don't understand. Of course we love each other. We're family and all that. I love Megan, and you are her sisters. Take Megan's hand, Matt. Right now. Show your true love, and take her hand in yours. I started to hold out my hand and suddenly realized something. I really didn't know which one of them was Megan at all. My indecision got to me. Do you see? You can't because you're not sure which one of us is Megan. We could tell you that it was either of us, and you would have absolutely no way of knowing if we were telling the truth or not. So why is Rick suddenly so upset? Because he found out that we loved you. I haven't figured it out yet. I must have had a hard day or something, but I missed the meaning of her words. It was evident from the way they all looked at each other strangely. Oh my God, he doesn't get it. It was the one on my left who said it. I suppose we should have foreseen that this would happen. It came from the one on the right. They all looked at each other and then said in unison, Matt, we love you. The way they said it all together was creepy. Hearing them say it at the same time was almost too much. I finally understood what they were driving at. Oh, shit. Oh, damn it. Heck. I put my head in my hands, feeling a lot of pressure from realizing what they were telling me. They loved me. They all loved me. As much as possible. I mean it, why? No, that's not right. My confusion was evident in my words, so in the end, I just shut up to collect my thoughts. I wanted to understand how this could happen, but now I knew it, didn't I? Then I wanted to ask why they did this not only to me, but also to Rick, but I also knew this answer. I was upset, but I'm not sure why. I wanted to get angry, but I couldn't even do that. Then I remembered something that really pissed me off. And there's Margot. All this time, Margot was dating other men. Margot was, the fool of the three of you. So if I hadn't figured this out, how long would I still be sharing my wife with Margot's guys? I mean, presumably all three of you love me so much. How could you do this to me? Constantly cheating on me at every opportunity. Am I not afraid that I will find out about it? They were smart enough to look damn guilty. My statement also started a dispute between them. I knew it. You didn't listen to me. Oh no. Margot must continue to behave normally. She should keep getting boyfriends. It's part of our cover. You both forced it on me. I didn't want to do this at all, but you kept pushing and pushing. Hey, you liked it too. We all decided that Margot had to stay herself in order to maintain the status quo. Yeah, well, you definitely should have kept Rick in line better. Letting him know that you fell in love with Matt was the straw that broke the camel's back. And now look where we are. You can't blame me for this, sister. You also spent every third week with him. But he's my husband. Of course, I love him more than Rick. Besides, I've never slept with just anyone unless I was forced to. I love my husband too much for that. He's our husband, sweetheart. We've been sharing it all this time. You can't claim it alone. Besides, we've all become more careful with dating week. Very few men went through first base with Margot after we fell in love with Matt. I met him first. He asked me out first. I fell in love with him first. You didn't do it. I did it. The one in the middle jumped up quickly. Oh, hell no. I love him, and I loved him first. I had been listening up to this point, and then I realized that I had to get back to the topic of conversation. They were starting to drive me crazy. Each of them argued about who fell in love with me first. Stop it. Listen to yourself. You're fighting over a guy. You've all been involved in this mess along the way. That's obvious. I was kept in the dark for as long as possible. I never suspected. You three are great. Very good. I never had a clue until recently. But we really love you, Matt. I love Megan. She's my wife, and I love her. Again, which one of us is she? Every time it came up, I lost. I knew it, they knew it, and as far as they were concerned, I had no choice but to give in. And I have a question. How many are few men? 5? 10? 50? For all those years. The best way to fix this would be to get divorced. Then I could find myself some lonely, pretty woman who didn't have any sisters at all. Maybe this will fix everything? I didn't expect the looks I got. All three of them looked equally shocked. It was like I hit them at the same time with all my might. Matt, you can't mean that. Please tell me that's not what you mean. It came from the one on my left. She was the only one who spoke, and for some reason it gave me hope for my marriage. The other two sat stunned, but the one on my left, she spoke first and firmly. Megan? Maybe. Megan? I looked to my left, at the one who was talking. All three answered as one. Yes. Damn it. I love Megan. I only love Megan. I care about Melissa and Margot, but I only love Megan. Matthew, darling, if we don't tell you, you'll never know which one of us is which. We have been changing for many years. You never knew until now, and so far it hasn't been a problem. We all love you. So why can't you accept it and not change anything? Then we will have some more serious problems that need to be solved. For example, while Megan, my legal wife, pretended to be Margot, she cheated on me with other men, not by a man, but by other men, deliberately and pointlessly. I wouldn't say it's pointless, Matt. Again to my left. Well, then how can you explain that cheating doesn't mean anything? It was to protect us, Matthew. You had more than a little to do with it. We decided that we had to keep up appearances. It ended up with compromises that we didn't like, but we didn't have a choice. Besides, Margot wasn't that active with other men, no matter how it looked. If Margot had stopped dating and Melissa had left Rick, then you would have found out almost immediately. We knew you couldn't handle it. The one in the center, in my imagination now, was Melissa. I was pretty sure that the one on my left was Megan, which meant that the one on my right was Margot. I couldn't prove it, mind you, but deep down I felt exactly that. Do you three have any idea how bad this is? I mean, have you been exchanging personalities like this all your life? Can you even be sure which one of you is bigger than which one? You all say you love me, and yet you all lied, cheated, and cheated behind my back, as if it was some kind of sick game with you. Oh yes, we know who is who between us. It's always been like this. We can keep ourselves separate from others in our minds if that's what you're worried about. We're not that crazy at all. Don't ask me to believe this argument. Everything I've learned today is crazy. How do we deal with this now? Or maybe I should go and start dating other women. How would that be normal for you? It's not going to be a new betrayal of my wife. I've already had 2 mistresses anyway. What options do we have, other than for me to divorce Megan and go off into the sunset alone? I said it to shock them. Let them think that I was ready to leave and live my life. Am I ready, you ask? I did not know. It would be much easier to get up and leave right now than to stay there and try to find some kind of solution. I was already out of my mind, so I decided that I had no choice but to try to find this solution. Their ideas shocked me to the core. Our options? It's simple. You're married to Megan. Melissa and Margot have an online business, just like Megan. You'll find a job in another city. We'll all move. We will buy a house outside the city with few or no neighbors. One of us will go into town every day for shopping and all that. The other 2 will be doing business online. You will never need company or love. We'll take care of you, Matthew. You're going to have more love than you'll ever know what to do with. Change jobs? I like my job. I like exactly where I am. Together we can love and live happily ever after, Matt. Here, well, we could probably come up with something, but it would be much more difficult. In addition, Margot and Melissa's small business is starting to become a real big business. Someday soon we will all be able to retire and live off it. Looking at all 3 of them, I finally realized what I needed to know. Anyway, I should have known. Megan, and only Megan. This is for you. How do you feel about this? Silence. All 3 of them stared at their hands without even looking at me. I desperately wanted to find out and understand how they could do this and be like this. But if they didn't want or couldn't give up this little thing, what was the point? First, I had to find out what Megan, the real Megan, was thinking. Even before I had time to figure out what to think about, suddenly I felt someone's foot on my shin, on my left shin, rubbing up and down gently, but with an intensity that spoke volumes. Megan? I talked to all 3 of them, hoping against hope that one of them would speak out. Still nothing but silence. The rubbing has become tougher. I knew this until the one on my right started rubbing against my other leg in the same way. I needed to get some space between me and them. You are all asking me to radically change from the way I was raised and taught. What you want to do is also illegal in every state. I need to think about it a little bit before I make a choice. I'm going to leave and check into a local motel for a few days. You're all staying here. I mean that. Margot especially needs to stay here. I'll make a decision as soon as I can, but you've given me a lot to think about. They didn't argue with me, although I could see the worry and fear on their faces. I packed my suitcase for a few nights, and when I left, all 3 of them were standing excitedly at the door. Please stay here. You can sleep in the master bedroom, and we'll stay in the other bedrooms, Matt. Please stay with us instead of leaving like this. Actually, I need to be away from all of you for a while. Until I come back with my decision, of course, all of you must be celibate. If I catch any of you on a date with another man or men, that will be the end. One of them opened the door for me, while the other 2 kissed me on the cheeks at the same time. The one holding the door came out and hugged me tightly, whispering in my ear, Matt, I love you. If you want, we can only leave together. Anywhere you want. I can't lose you. I just can't. You should have thought about all this when we met and got married for the first time, Megan. Or who you really are. The look in her eyes told me a lot. It wasn't Megan. Her gaze darted into the living room through the open door. I couldn't make out which one she looked at, but it was enough for me to know that it wasn't my wife. Do you see? I can't trust any of you right now. None of you. You've made a huge mess, bigger than any Pandora's box. To tell you the truth, I don't think I can handle it at all. Being with all three of you was never in my mind. I married a girl. Not for all three of them. My louder voice made the other two jump to the door. All three of them were shedding tears, begging me not to leave. Getting into the car, I looked back and felt something strange squeeze my heart. It was like I was being strangled. From the inside, I ran into Rick a few nights later. When I got to the bar, he stood up as if he was going to leave. "You're leaving? I'll follow you. I'll follow you to hell, you bastard." All the way there with the bells on and a bucket of water in my hand. "We're going to talk, and you're going to answer my questions. Just drop it, man. You won. I'm leaving, and I'll never tell anyone about these three, ever. Did you know all this time and never let me know about it? You don't understand. When I met Melissa, there was no other man around. I was him. When I discovered what they were doing, at first I was crazier than hell, but then I realized that it was all doing me good. So what? So what? Damn it, man. You're married to one of them, and they're all using you. This is wrong on any level. Animals do it. The animals have one male who reproduces the whole herd all the time. I also want to remind you that they started it. Not me. They are. When I found out about it, they calmed me down and let me know how lucky I was. Then you come along, Matt. What do I have to do with this? That's it. Melissa has fallen in love with you, and so has Margot. Megan was head over heels in love with you on your first date. I kind of figured it out when my life started disappearing here and there. Pretty soon I started getting about the same as any normal married man. Once or twice a week. 3 times a good week. You, on the other hand, made love almost every night. Several times during the night, if I understood their conversations, which I overheard. Are you saying that all this time you knew what they were doing not only to you, but also to me, and you agreed with it? Hey, they're beautiful women, in case you haven't noticed yet. They're also identical triplets. If I had told you, you would never have believed me, and they might have done something drastic to stop me from blabbing. How was I supposed to know what they would do? I mean, they're different in every way from any other women you've ever met. I highly doubt they'll hurt you or me, Rick. Yes? I thought I was married to one of them, not all three. I thought they loved me, until you showed up. I don't think I've ever understood them at all. You, on the other hand, have already done it. 3 wives, 3 mistresses, just the 3 of you, and you're standing here and you're mad at me? Have you completely won their hearts and gone so far as to leave them because of it? You have no idea how lucky you really are, Matt. If only they loved me half as much as they love you. His passion was coming out, and I could see the pain in his eyes. He couldn't finish the sentence. They rejected him for me. They fell in love with me, but not as much as they fell in love with him. If they were in love at all, I could understand why he would be upset. I just couldn't figure out why he was upset with me. Until recently, I was innocent of all this. I'm sorry, Rick. I never knew. I never knew they were doing this. If I had known earlier, what? Would you have left them? I strongly doubt it. Eventually, they would switch you to their way of thinking. Now I know that what they felt for me was like lust, or maybe lust. What they feel for you is true love, Matt. I can see that. They can feel it. Why can't you? I'm leaving here. Unless you still want to smash my head in. I just stood there and watched him walk away into the night. What could I say? His argument was accurate, to say the least. I knew they loved me. I felt it in my heart. I knew I loved them too. But it was all wrong. Confused, I went back to the bar and drank late into the night. Drunker than I've been in a while. I stumbled back to my motel room, barely moving on the sidewalk. In my drunken state, I tried to focus on what I was feeling, what I thought and what I knew. Of course, a drunk never really thinks as straight as he thinks, and in the morning, besides the hellish hangover, I was even more confused by my situation. I spent the next 5 days just avoiding everyone I knew. I was on my way to work, and then to the motel. I spent nights with drinks and bartenders wondering if I would sleep better or not. It was usually or not. One evening I called them and set up a date to talk to them. It was a difficult call, because the one I was talking to was crying all the time. "Hi, this is Matt. I think we all need to talk. I thought about something last week, and I hope the 3 of you do too." "Oh, Matt, please yes. We'll be here. I'll cook dinner, us. Let's cook dinner. We really need to talk to you. I love you, Matt. We all love you. At the moment, she didn't look like any of the sisters at all. Her thoughts were coming out of her mouth in a complete mess. I could feel her tension on the phone. Tension and despair. Well, that's what we need to talk about, you know? This thing is with love. I'm not thrilled about what the three of you have done to me, but I also know that I love one of you more than life itself. So I'm stuck in the middle of a mess that I've never had anything to do with. I do not know if it is possible to fix everything, but I know that we really need to discuss this. We'll have dinner ready. How about 6 tomorrow night? 6? I think it's okay. I'll be there at 6. I hung up the phone before saying anything else. I almost burst into tears when I heard her on the phone. I knew I couldn't tell which one of them she was, and that she was as upset as any of them ever were. Coping with this was one of the most difficult tasks I had to solve. At 6 o'clock the next evening, I parked, plucking up the courage to enter what had once been my home. I felt like a stranger. It was surreal because right outside that front door was the woman I loved. In triplicate, the door opened quickly at my first knock. Matt, we're glad you came. They were all there. If I didn't know them, it would be pretty scary. They were very beautifully dressed. I could see that they had prepared carefully, and they all looked exactly the same. I won't have a chance, will I? A look of confusion appeared on their faces. What do you mean? Yes, what do you mean by that, Matt? We will give you every chance and hope that you will do the same for us. We love you, Matt. Please let us prove it to you. All three expressed their opinions. You're all dressed exactly the same. I can't tell you apart, and you know it. Oh, we wanted everything to be equal. Whatever happens tonight is important to you, and we know it. We thought if we all looked the same, it would be easier for you manage. Or are you hiding behind a trick that I do not know which of you is which? I turned to leave. I was offended and angry. I was attacked by a gang, and they obviously weren't going to give up their lifestyle. I was grabbed and dragged back inside. I heard the door slam and the lock click. All right, Matt. Then we'll do it your way. The marks, a lot of dots were there, right between their shoulder blades, as if I had made them, new and shining brightly. Next to each mark was a name written in ink of the same color. The red one, Megan. Black, Margot. Green, Melissa. Wait a second. I thought the color was green. Matt, then we lied. We didn't know how upset you'd be. Now the correct name is highlighted in the correct color. If everything works out the way we hope, we will always have our colors. You've all exchanged before. How can I trust you to stand up straight, and even more, how can I be sure of that? These are not marks, Matt. These are tattoos. We finished with them on Monday morning after discussing it between us. They cannot be washed away, erased, or disappear. They are constant. We knew that you had to have some way of separating us from each other in your mind that would be permanent. Names? No. Only dots. If you look closely, each of us has a dot between our shoulder blades, a colored flower between our cheeks. Well, in another place where you marked us, and another one on the front of our bodies, right at our navels. See? When I looked down at their bellies, I saw big flowers next to their navels. In a way, it was beautiful. In another sense, it was a reminder. Each flower was made with taste, and each had its own color. No, there was no black flower. Only red, green, and blue. I knew I had to make a move. Maybe we should go to the kitchen and talk then? I felt like a space adventurer who is shown in a movie. I was taking a huge step into uncharted territory, and I wasn't sure what the result would be. When we entered the kitchen, I grabbed Megan's hand and hugged her to me. I sat down and hugged her to me, much to the disappointment of her sisters. Why are you keeping Megan by your side, Matt? She's my wife, and I thought I was married to her the whole time. But we thought you were going to settle something between us. That's right. I'm going to force the three of you to become individuals, or if you don't, I'm going to divorce Megan and move on. I know all three of you love me, and I know you all think it might work, but I'm not ready for it. I really don't know. I've always been a man with one woman, and all this. The confusion really drove me crazy. But what are Melissa and I going to do then? Matt, we love you as much as Megan does. We deserve a chance with you too. We can share it. From now on, we'll just be with you. We can do whatever you want us to do to prove it to you. I don't need your proof. I want Megan. I tried to tell you last night, but you weren't listening. I love Megan. I want Megan. I also love you too, but not the way I love Megan. I saw the hurt and resentment on Melissa and Margot's faces. Megan held my hand tightly, and my heart was beating harder and harder. I've been thinking about this for the last week, and I've come to the conclusion that if we live together, we'll eventually be discovered. Legal and moral issues would be the next big topic on the evening news, just like that Mormon guy who's in trouble right now. I can't do that. We want you, Matt. We all want you, and we will fight to keep you. What about what I want? You all claim to love me so damn much. What about what I want and what I can handle? Can't you see that you're imposing your will on me, not giving me a single chance? They all looked at each other with a guilty and sad look that spoke volumes. Deep down, they knew that what they wanted was not what I wanted, and despite the fears in my own heart, I knew that the only way to settle everything was to have only one wife. None of you seem to fully understand my feelings about this. I thought I was happily married to Megan all this time. I thought she was faithful and loved me and only me. Now I find out that she really is all of you. I found out that she slept with other men while married to me, although you all seem to think that what I didn't know wouldn't hurt me. Well, damn it, it really hurts. More than a little. I felt Megan's grip on my arm loosen, and she began to pull away from me. I saw fear and maybe pain in her eyes when I finished my obscene comments. In the past, I rarely swore around any of them. I tightened my grip on Megan's hand and actually pulled her closer to me. I need you three to know that I can only love one woman. To do something else for me is to cheat on someone I love. Even if the other two agree with what we're doing, I don't. Can't you see that if we tried to do what you want, then eventually I would be lost to all of you? If you hadn't found out, we would still be fine. Each of us has been with you in turn since you got married. You never seemed to mind back then. You're right about that. But on the other hand, there are marriages and relationships in which the other partner is also unaware that he likes to sleep with others. Once he finds out, it doesn't get any less painful, and it's never right. But we all love you, and we all want you to be our Matt. Only Megan can get me. Melissa and Margot, you need to find your soulmates, and I really mean men. Each of you needs your own man, and Megan, if she wants, has her own man. It doesn't mean that everything will work out for us after all this mess, but I'm ready to try to fix everything between us, as long as you can all be true to each other and me. This means that the two of you, Melissa and Margot, need to find your own men and no longer try to pull off this exchange trick. Megan, you're going to have to be loyal to me and only me, just like I've always been faithful to you in my heart. Now the tears were all around me. They cried and then sobbed when my firm and final choice was made. I knew that I had caused them all deep pain, and I wasn't so sure that Megan would stay with me after that. Perhaps their connections were too strong for them to accept that I was only with Megan. However, I could only hope that it would be their choice, as my alternative choice would cause us all even more pain. I am fully prepared to divorce Megan and move on with my life, no matter what they may say or do. I wasn't too sure Megan and I could fix it either, but I still loved her, and circumstances showed me that she deserved at least one chance to be the good wife that I knew she could be if she tried. I'm going to leave now, and you girls can let me know what you've decided later. I need some more time alone, and you need to think about it. I will not be mistaken about this, but I am firm. I know being with all three of you could be heaven, but it wouldn't be something I could handle. We would have broken up anyway in the end. I'll call you in a few more days, and then we can talk. I drove back to the motel and sat in the dark for a while. I've been arguing with myself about this for several days now. I know that there were a lot of guys in the world who would jump at the opportunity to be with three identical women. I also know that eventually they will get tired of it, and the fun and games will start to tear them apart. It was a difficult decision for me, and I really hoped that these three would accept the best offer I made them. If they hadn't, my life would have been torturous for quite some time. I really didn't want to divorce Megan, but I would have divorced if they couldn't accept my terms. I have always been and always will be a man with one woman. Later that night, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Megan was standing in front of me. She looked hunted, and her eyes were swollen and red from crying. "Come in, Megan. How did you know it was me? Your color." "Oh, I forgot. What do you want to talk about?" "About us." "Okay, I didn't expect her to show up tonight. In fact, I didn't expect any of them to show up at all. I pretty much decided that they would never be able to break away from their normal lives, as they had been doing this since childhood. Have a seat. Do you want something to drink? I have some soda or bottled water. Water would be nice. I brought her some water and sat down at a small table opposite her. She looked around the room, anywhere but at me. Finally, I talked to her about why she was here. Okay, you came to me about something. It must be important if you dug around until you found where I was staying. What do you want to say? We were talking about us. All of us. Melissa and Margot are hurt deeper than you can imagine, but they both agreed that we are, that I deserve you. And if you take me back, I'll be your wife and only your wife. No more swapping or switching. No more hiding the truth and no more lying. Good. That's not all. Melissa and Margot know that we've hurt you more than we ever thought. We never really understood how you felt, as we all thought that you would have thought that you had died and gone to heaven if you had all of us. Now we know that we were not only terribly wrong, but also probably destroyed some of your love for us. I say we, because until recently you were equally in love with all of us. Don't say you weren't, because you were. You treated each of us exactly the same. You still don't get it, do you? I treated you the same way because until recently I thought I was dealing with my wife, the only person I loved with all my heart. I never knew, and if I knew, there would be differences. Don't think they wouldn't exist. In my opinion, I don't love you all the same, even if you played different games with me and got away with it. In my mind, you were all Megan every time I went to bed with you. I know that. Now we know that. We didn't see it then, but after today and the last few days, we know we were wrong. I want to live with you for the rest of my life, Matt. I want to love you, and I want you to love me. Melissa and Margot want it too, but they realize that they will have to find their own men and make their own love. So, no more switching? Never again. It's not going to be easy for us, but now we know that we've been wrong all along. It was a painful lesson for us, and we know that Mom and Dad will be surprised to find out how bad we really were. You don't have to tell them. Let go of the situation. The only ones who really know what's going on are the three of you, Rick and me. Let them have ignorance, and let them think that you are all three good girls. I won't tell anyone, and I'm pretty sure Rick won't either. Oh, we thought you'd want us to tell everyone about how we've changed and all that. Oh, hell no. First of all, it would embarrass not only the three of you, but the whole family and me too. Just forget about it, and we'll arrange our lives, just the two of us. Melissa and Margot can find their own men, and pretty soon we can all become one big happy family again without destroying other people's thoughts and feelings. Only the three of you, and I have to really sort this out. Let's not drag others into this mess. Okay? Really? Will you be okay if only the four of us know what it was all about? Aren't you going to tell anyone about this? My lips are sealed, Megan. This will be our secret. She jumped up and came over to hug and kiss me. I pushed back my chair and sat her on my lap. Holding her tightly in my lap, I kissed her long and hard. Matt, do you think you could help me a little bit here? It's been a long time since I've been with you. I mean it. Later that night, after some strenuous exercise and lovemaking, Megan looked mischievously into my eyes. What? I was interested. I wonder what? Well, you know Melissa and Margot will be looking for their own men now. Yes. I was interested. Do you think you could take care of them from time to time? You know, just until they find their own men to love? Megan, are you crazy? Haven't you learned anything? I cannot. Just kidding. I was just joking. Can't you understand the joke? Damn, I know you wouldn't knowingly do that. And it's better for me not to do it unknowingly in the future either. If you know what I mean. You won't do that. From now on, you're stuck with me. You understand, of course, that our love life is likely to slow down somewhat. You'll get tired of loving just me and all that. Oh, I don't think I'll be the one to drift down. You're not going to get the break you used to get, and you're going to have to put up with the fact that I'm constantly pestering you for love, I bet. Yes? Oh, yes. I can live with that. I really love this woman,